Hey everybody, it's your favorite classmate Shane Menard here, coming to you from deep inside the quarantine zone, but no need to worry about us. We're here nice, safe, and sound at the Menard compound. Got a very well-stocked refrigerator and pantry, plenty of things to binge on Netflix, and a ton of video games to play through, so we're not hurting. I'd like to apologize in advance if my dogs start barking and you see a cat run through the background. I'm sorry, but my house is a zoo, so let's go ahead and get started. Obviously, this is Principles of International Business. I'm going to be doing my chapter 5 through 8 presentation. I selected one topic from each chapter to kind of take a little bit deeper dive on than we were able to do in class. So let's go ahead and get started. Obviously, we'll start at the beginning, chapter 5 here. In this chapter, we're going to talk about the infant industry argument. If you look in your textbooks on page 168, you're going to find the infant industry argument right here about 3/4 of the way down the page. So this argument says if domestic firms are as young as infants, in the absence of government intervention, they stand no chance of surviving and will be crushed by mature foreign rivals. This argument was initially developed by Alexander Hamilton and Friedrich List. It's often cited as rationale for protectionism, protect the burgeoning domestic manufacturers versus the mature foreign ones. And this intervention is designed to level the playing field so that the young industry has a chance to develop and flourish without being crushed by the mature one. Continuing on, there are quite a few examples of this. The most obvious and the one that's cited in our textbook is Airbus. Airbus was started in 1970 as a multinational conglomerate made up, initially owned by the different governments of the European Union. And due to the high barriers for entry into the aircraft manufacturing industry, the low interest loans, the subsidies, the tax breaks that were provided by these governments were vital to Airbus even getting off the ground, no pun intended. And today Airbus is some years beats Boeing as the largest manufacturer of aircraft in the world. So another example is the Japanese automotive industry. Prior to World War II, the Japanese automotive industry, much like in America, was dominated by the big three, Ford, GM, and Chrysler. But in 1936, the Japanese were able to enact some legislation that severely crippled, if not completely destroyed, the big three's ability to manufacture and sell automobiles within Japan, thus giving the advantage to the new domestic manufacturers, Toyota, Mitsubishi, Nissan, who were able to take advantage of these legislations that were passed and were able to become, a huge part of, if not the biggest part of the world automotive industry today. And of course, United States manufacturing. At the end of the 19th century, the United States was really a new kid on the block in terms of industrialization and manufacturing, far behind Great Britain and Germany. So the United States government, the federal government, enacted very high trade barriers and very high tariffs that were able to protect this new manufacturing industry and was able to make it what it was. Moving on to chapter 6. Chapter 6, we're going to talk about obsolescence bargaining. We're going to find this in our textbooks right here at the bottom of 197, and it continues up on to 198. Obsolescence bargaining is the deal struck between multinational enterprises and host governments which change their requirements after the initial foreign direct investment entry. So this bargain takes place generally in 3 rounds. The first round, the MNEs and governments negotiate a deal. Round 2, the MNE enters and earns, hopefully, if all goes well, earns a profit. And then round 3, seeing these profits, the government, usually under pressure from domestic political entities or domestic industry, want to renegotiate the deal, cut tax breaks, cut any type of advantage they may have initially provided the MNE to get them in the door, up to and possibly including seizing the foreign assets. So, but obsolescence bargaining and foreign direct investment doesn't have to be a net sum game. Using the 3 C's here that we see: common interest, conflicting interests, and compromises. It's possible for both sides of this to come to a place where they both are better and they both benefit from the negotiation and from the agreement. So now moving on to chapter 7, we have strategic hedging. Back into our textbooks, page 225, right here in the center of the page, takes up most of the page here on 225. Strategic hedging is spreading out activities in a number of countries and different different currency zones to offset any currency loss in one region through gains in another region. I mean, this definition should sound very familiar to everybody because it's currency diversification, much like you would diversify your stock portfolio. So losses or something that happens critically in one industry doesn't completely wipe out your investment if you're solely invested in that. The same is done with currency. You're spreading it across multiple currencies and multiple geographic regions. So anything that arises, you know, runaway inflation, war, things like that, that are going to damage the currency's value doesn't completely wipe out the foreign direct investment. And it reduces your exposure. You're able to, like the definition says, offset losses in one area with hopefully gains in another. And it differs from currency hedging. Currency hedging more focuses on things that can be done in-house with your financial people or possibly an outside, you know, currency specialist, currency investment specialist. Whereas strategic hedging focuses more on the actual geographic spreading out of the currency. And finally, we move into chapter 8, our last chapter of the day. We're going to talk about the Doha Road. Doha Road takes up about half the page on 242 and then half the page on 243 also. Doha Road is a round of World Trade Organization negotiations that were designed to reduce agricultural subsidies, slash tariffs, and strengthen intellectual property protection. They took place in 2001 in Doha, Qatar, but there were subsequent meetings at various locations around the world. And as said, it was intended to promote trade and development. During these talks, agriculture became the real hot potato issue. The developing countries that were taking part in the talks demanded that the established agricultural producers, Japan, the EU, and the US, decrease their subsidies that were providing their agricultural industry to help give these developing countries a chance, basically. Japan flat out just rejected this idea. There's no way they said there was no way they were going to go along with it. The EU refused, and the US actually increased their subsidies. So clearly they weren't on the same page as developing countries either. It was obvious relatively quickly that participants were still miles apart. So talks were officially suspended in 2006. In 2008, 2011, and 2013, talks were started back up, trying to get to some sort of agreement. In 2013, they were able to reach a small agreement that cut red tape at ports and things like that, but it was nothing compared to the big picture of what they were trying to accomplish. So that leads us to questions. Obviously, this isn't live. There's no way we can interact right now. But if anybody has any questions about any of these topics, anything in the chapters we're covering now, anything for the rest of the semester, please feel free to email me. I don't always have the answers, obviously, but I'll work to try to help you find it, or together we can figure something out. We can do something here on Zoom, collaborate that way. We can do it through email. It really doesn't matter. Just let me know. So as always, remember to smash that. Oh, never mind. Sorry, wrong type of video. I'll see you guys later.